The interrogation of suspects is critical to any criminal investigation. A suspect might lie or tell the truth. They may be innocent or guilty. Interrogation is a high-stakes game. Too much pressure, and an innocent person might confess to a crime they didn't commit. But if the truth isn't discovered, a murderer could go free. So how does an interrogator get to the truth? New technology can scan our bodies and may reveal the telltale signs of deception. Research tells us what body language and speech patterns can indicate lying. Using actual interrogation footage, we will see how two detectives use the science of interrogation to solve murder cases.
I killed that little girl that night.
When a crime is committed, the police bring suspects in for questioning. A suspect is only interrogated if the police believe they're involved. If the suspect has committed a serious crime, like murder, they're probably not going to answer questions truthfully.
Do they pay you enough?
The challenge for the interrogator is to know when they're being lied to. But this is no easy task. Maureen O'Sullivan is the professor of psychology at the University of San Francisco. She's carried out extensive research into people's ability to detect lies.
There was a recent study of lie detection, and average accuracy is about 54%, where chance is 50%. So most people are not good at telling when others are lying.
The study included law enforcement officers, but many of them are no better at detecting lies than the rest of us. Stan Walters is an expert on interrogation. He's published books on how to detect deception and runs courses for law enforcement officers on how to improve their interrogation skills.
So you're acting. What happened?
Not all law enforcement officers receive this additional training.
You also got to remember you're dealing with a psychopath. McNair's good.
Walter's years of experience interrogating suspects in criminal cases have convinced him that we can become better lie detectors.
It is possible to become a better lie detector, to do a better job at spotting people who are trying to deceive you.
Stress will have an unseen emotional change that will trigger a change in behavior.
He believes the key to spotting lies is understanding how stressful lying is.
Lying puts a great deal of stress on the person who proposes to lie. A lot of emotional stress, cognitive stress, that's betrayed in the verbal and nonverbal behavior.
The stress of lying can change a person's normal body language. Walters calls these changes deception cues.
The cues that appear to be those that have the highest link with deception are those movements around the face that are called negation, covering the eyes, nose, mouth, ears, or too long shaking your head, protesting too much, or aversion of the body turning and moving away from the interviewer.
The stress of lying can also affect a person's speech.
You think I don't know that I would be on camera if I went there?
Those verbal cues that are signs of deception include such things as something called cognitive dissonance, where there's extreme stress in the mind and the message becomes lost in the transmission.
Yeah, he was with a few people.
The other cues are those in a large category called denial. Convenient memory lapses, overselling the statement, trust me, believe me, honestly, qualifying statements, indirect answers.
Look, I don't know. I go there every night after work.
These are cues that the subject's attempting to mislead the interrogator.
So he was working full
These
time.
changes in body language and speech are not the only deception cues to look out for. One of the greatest challenges facing the liar is concealing their true emotions.
Darwin believed, and we believe also, that there are a few basic emotions that are hardwired, and that if you are emotionally aroused, this whole package just fires. And most people are not fast enough or good enough to track it. And you're going to get micro expressions where the person is attempting to control their emotion, but they're not able to. So it flashes on the face in a 15th of a second or a 30th of a second.
During the O.J. Simpson trial, one witness exhibits a micro-expression.
We're going to watch a video clip of Cato Kalin. He was a house guest of O.J. Simpson. Cato Kalin is being questioned about whether or not he has a book contract.
That you have a book proposal out.
As Marcia Clark talks with him about the book deal, he denies it.
You don't have a book proposal?
But he is having to control himself. You can see the clenching of his jaws. He denies it again. But as she gives more and more details about the book deal, he realizes that the cat's out of the bag.
You don't have any book proposals out?
No. Don't want to do book.
What's of interest is very early on in the interview, a very quick flick on his nose
Yes.
of anger, disgust.
Yes.
As you look at his facial expression, when it is slowed down, you can see that he's showing an extremely strong expression of anger or disgust. That was just a flick in real time, unless you've been trained to recognize microexpressions.
Yes. Yes.
Later in the trial, evidence was presented of a conversation between Kalin and a publisher about a book contract.
How long have you known John?
Spotting deception cues in a suspect's body language, speech, and emotions helps an interrogator get to the truth. Stan Walters also teaches that an interrogation should be carried out in 3 well-planned phases.
And the objective is to try to get as much information as possible, but at the same time making sure that the content is accurate.
Phase 1 establishes a rapport with the suspect.
Did you play baseball? I played in the semi-pro league when I was 17.
The second phase draws out their story.
Lost around and fell back right here on the coffee table.
In phase 3, their story is challenged.
That I have some concerns about the story that you told me.
The detective investigating the murder of Carmen Ross, Detective Woods, begins the narrative phase of his interrogation of her ex-husband, Thomas Murray. As he asks Murray questions about the murder, he spots an important body language cue concerning his hands.
Initially, I think he was trying to hide his hands from us. That was one of those things you just kind of notice those things. And that definitely came into play later on as those questions progressed.
Do you have any cuts, scrapes? Oh yeah, take a look at this.
And he would lay out his hands, and there were some cuts on his fingers.
Look at that.
Well, how did you get these cuts on your hand? Well, I got these cuts on my hands from cleaning out the gutters. I got this cut from where I was cutting up a fresh pineapple.
I had bought a fresh pineapple and was cutting it apart and sliced into my hand.
How did you get those bruises on your wrist?
This, I guess that's from playing with Kiara too.
The injuries weren't necessarily consistent with what his explanation was.
Instead of pressing Murray about these injuries, Detective Woods leaves the room and watches him through a 2-way mirror.
Mr. Murray is looking at his wrists, he's looking at his hands, and he tries to start reenacting how these bruises may have happened. And he's bouncing his wrist up and down on his knees like he was playing with a child. This is the perfect time for the interrogator to watch the suspect in unguarded moments. Many times you'll see them working through in their mind how they've carried out an act, sometimes either mouthing their statements or verbally rehearsing the statements. There's been moments where they've apologized under their breath, or in this case, Thomas Murray literally acting out an explanation for injuries.
I'm still, now you've got me really wondering about and the only thing I can think of, and this is going to seem kind of lame, but I know yesterday I was playing with Kiara like this, among other things. She had me do it for a long time, and maybe that bruised it.
Lieutenant Loria obtained Nicole Frederick's confession after a 6-hour interrogation over 2 days. The taped confession was shown at her trial, along with evidence from the family home. Frederick was found guilty of the murder of her stepdaughter, Anne-Marie Shawley, and sentenced to life imprisonment. Lieutenant Loria and Detective Woods achieved their results in the interrogation room without resorting to strongly coercive methods.
Most people have the perception that a police interrogation is a highly intense, very emotional, confrontational type of interview. But in fact, the more productive interview is not of that form.
A technology which can detect deception 100% of the time, most believe will always elude us. In the absence of such a technology, we continue to depend on highly skilled interrogators who are dedicated to getting to the truth.
Somebody comes into the room,
They know what the truth is. They've made a decision. No matter what happens, I'm not telling the cops the truth. But within a matter of a couple of hours, just sitting there talk to them, not only do they tell you the truth, but they write it out for you. It's unbelievably powerful.
The cause of justice is best served by training law enforcement officers in non-coercive interrogation methods, which are based on a profound understanding of human behavior and psychology.